Live.
Hello and welcome to the to a special Superversive live stream. I'm here with Bay Michael Stevens, the author of the Goddess Gambit, new release out on Amazon. The link's down in the doobly-doo, along with other stuff that Superversive Press does. Ben, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Wheeler. Thank you.
It's good to hear. So tell us about the Goddess Gambit. The plot, everything about it, what you like about it, that sort of thing.
Sure thing. All right. Well, that's going to be kind of a long answer because there's the Goddess Gambit is well, it's my debut novel, and while when I first started taking writing seriously, I really didn't know a whole lot about the craft, especially the marketing side of it, and it was there's a lot about the Goddess Gambit that kind of bucks conventional wisdom, especially specifically it's extremely cross genre, right? It wasn't written to market, so that was the challenging thing about it, but it's also kind of the fun thing about it, in my opinion, is what it's about is it's science fantasy, and there isn't a science fantasy category on Amazon. So
more's the pity.
What's that?
More's the pity.
Yeah. And so trying to figure out how to classify it and market it has been a challenge. But that's what makes it fun. So getting back to the other half of that answer is, so it's set in the future. It's the future's post-apocalyptic. There's a society where the main character lives, and he's a soldier of this society, and it's actually a dystopian society. So there's that element going on, and he's a soldier in a military. And these guys, they have power armor. They've got heavy mecha, big tall things. They got all kinds of stuff, flying stuff, armored stuff, and so there's this military sci-fi aspect to it. And then you've got an urban fantasy element as well. So what they're fighting against is, in the future, there's only one small pocket of humanity left that we know of, right? The reader knows of. There might be more, and it's referred to as home, capital H, home, and that's just what they call their own country there. And the rest of the planet outside of home is this swirling chaos, wasteland, if you will. It's full of monsters, that they refer to as invasive species, or drop trash, invasives. They have a bunch of different slang words in the book to describe the different things. And basically, these invasives, they're coming to Earth through random portals. A lot like the tabletop role-playing game Rifts. This draws heavily. My inspiration drew heavily from that game and games like Shadowrun and video games like Final Fantasy. So I have an easier time telling people what games, tabletop and video games, that the book is like, compared to telling them what another book that it might be similar to, because I think the only one I can really think of off the top of my head would be like Chris Fox's Magitech series, where you have super advanced technological military guys fighting fantasy elements, magic wielding goddesses, for example, in my book, or like Chris's, he's got gods as well, dragons, spaceships fighting dragons, that kind of thing. So it's a one part Lord of the Rings, one part Star Wars, and it's just like this crazy Frankenstein love child. But so turns out these invasive species that are coming from other dimensions aren't really invading, right? That's the story that's being sold to the soldiers, and John, our main character, he comes to find that there's the world isn't quite so black and white. Right, there's a lot of gray here. Yes, there are monsters. They'll eat your face off, but there's also good, innocent people who are just trying to figure out how to get their way back home, and have been deposited on our planet against their will. No one understands why these portals happen, what's making them happen, and how to make them stop. That's part of the big picture that'll get answered at the end. And so John, he learned. I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but he learns this, that the world isn't everything he was told it was, and he gets swept up into a plot by one of the invasives, the goddess of the title. Her name is Maya, and he ends up getting caught up in her plot, her gambit, if you will, because she puts her life on the line to try to get him snared into her little quest, and they have to go on this epic journey to recover this this item. We don't really know much about it. It's an item of mystery. It's called the anvil, and it's supposedly locked away in a crashed spaceship somewhere, and the spaceship's called the Morning Star. And we learn about this, but see, none of that quest really happens in the Goddess Gambit. That's going to happen in the sequels. They have to deal with some more immediate threats that pop up, and in the Goddess Gambit, and it's kind of just this wild action sequence. Pretty much like the second half of the book is one almost. It's not. I can't really say it's one long drawn out fight, but it almost is. It definitely has a lot of action at the end. In 2016, when I first made the shift from writing as a creative outlet to, I was like, hey, I want to be a writer, and what does that entail? And started learning things, started actually learning about the craft, started reading other people's advice, started practicing more than just puking words out. I had no idea what I was doing in the beginning. I've always been some sort of a storyteller, but I never took the craft seriously until like 2016. And at that point, I took what was the Goddess Gambit then, had a different title and everything, and I pretty much scrapped it and started over. I may manage to save maybe 10-15% of it that is now in the final product, but I started over and I changed a lot of things from the original vision, made it more I made it more of a structured story in the sense that it's got a first act, a second act, and a third, resolution, climax, denouement, the whole nine. Whereas before it was just kind of this rambling thing, and the reason it was this kind of a rambling mess is the story is based on a like a role-playing game junior, like a watered down version of a role-playing game that I wrote and ran for my 10-year-old son at the time. It was his first exposure to RPGs, and so it wasn't very hardcore, dice and rules. It was more just like me sitting around with him and doing a choose your own adventure story from the hip, right? And so that's this whole story is based on that game that I played with my son. Now it's changed a lot to make it a proper book, but most of it is exactly the same as it was in the game. I would say the core of it is the same, and so the whole book is dedicated to my son Liam, who's now 19. So this was a long time ago, and I told him someday I'm going to write this into a book for him, and that turned into like, well, okay, I actually really enjoy this, and I want to do this regularly, and now it's just, if I have any free time when I'm out here in the oil fields, if I'm not sleeping or working, I'm writing. So
fantastic.
It's really turned into a fun thing, and the sequels are going to be awesome. They're very different than Goddess. The Goddess has got it's got that classic structure I talked about, and I think it really fires on all cylinders. I'm a little worried that people who enjoy the action elements of it are going to be possibly disappointed in the sequel, because it's now the sequel's done. The first sequel is done. We're just waiting on the cover art, and it'll be probably released late April, early May, and it's got a slower pace. It's more of a slow burn. It kind of reminds me of, if I could be so bold, the way the story works. Not comparing my own craft, but just the story itself reminds me of The Wolves of the Kala by Stephen King. This got this that slow burn where the protagonists come to a place and they see something's wrong, and slowly build up a plan, and everything's really lax, and all of a sudden they pull the trigger and they green light their little plan, and everything goes crazy, and then boom, there's the climax of the book. If you follow me on that, so yeah, the sequels are gonna be different, but the sequels are gonna finish that big picture story of why the goddess from the Goddess Gambit, Maya, why she got John to help her in the first place, and what the anvil is, and how it's going to, save the world. It's gonna be that on that level where they have to figure out how to stop these portals from happening, how to stop the monsters that we call harvesters. That's the only organized invasive in the whole saga. Most of them are just random kind of ones and twos. Some strange creature that fell out of a portal, or some strange dispossessed red-skinned girl fell out of a portal. But now the harvesters, they're organized, and they're legion, and so they're like the big picture enemy that has to be addressed in the sequels. Whereas in Goddess, everything happens close to home. I got a couple of villains in there that readers have come to love and hate, and they're all named after. This is the fun part about being a writer, right? They're. I shouldn't even say this because you have to, all people's names are coincidental, but let's just say I had a little fun with the names of the bad guys in this book. Some nod, wink, wink, author revenge kind of stuff going on. So,
hey, it's light and interesting, as long as it's not too obvious, of course.
Yeah.
Right. So, you're inspired by a game you played with your son. So, what inspired the Harvesters? Those were a pretty interesting monster, I thought. You came up with? Did you just come up with them, or were you inspired by a movie or a video game or anything?
No, I just kind of came up with them. I before the Goddess, all I'd ever written professionally have been was short stories, and they were all horror short stories. I was trying to get into make a name for myself in the cosmic horror scene. I'm a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft and the mythos. Not so much as anymore, but there's a lot of things have changed in my personal life that have changed my outlook on the world. But I really used to be super into that cosmic horror stuff. So, just the slavering thing that has no name, tentacle horror kind of stuff. And you'll come to find out in the sequels, there's a little bit more to the Harvesters than meets the eye, and so it kind of might explain their chimeric appearance, how they seem to be, they have that element about them, like a like a chimera from like Dungeons and Dragons. You got the head of a lion, the head of a goat, the tail of a dragon, body. So it has all these different, like it's made from many things, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be explained in the future books. What the Harvesters really are, why they are different than all the other creatures, if you will. So can't really give that away right now because that's a pretty big spoiler. But it will be addressed, and
of course. So let's see here. So I've noticed that you've gotten a lot of positive reviews. Is that kept up so far over the release?
We're at 9 right now. I got one more this morning. I'm pretty excited about that. A lot of that, I'm going to say maybe five or six of those were because I used ARC readers. I probably should have used more, but I'm learning. This is a learning curve. Never done this before, so I'm leaning a lot on Jason for advice, and which is partly why I went with a publisher in the first place. I didn't want to just go it alone when I have so far to go, when I have so much to learn still. And so I got a copy from Matt, from logotexture.com. He was our formatter guy, and I said, can you make me an ARC? And he did. And I handed out these advanced copies to some trusted friends who I knew weren't going to, abuse it, and said, hey, please read this. And then they were like my little team, and I gave it to them 3 months ago. I gave them 3 months to finish the book, and I wanted them all to just drop a review the day it dropped on Amazon, so we could start working those algorithms right away. But unfortunately, we're still a little shy. I think we need 10 or something like that to get the AMS, the most out of your AMS ads. So I need some reviewers, people. And the good news is it's going on sale for 99 cents on the 15th, and we're going to run that sale for a week. So hopefully that'll get some more people interested, trying to remove all obstacles. And if there's any doubt, price being one of them, well then wait until the 15th, pick it up for 99 cents, and drop a review.
Absolutely. It sounds like you have your thumb on the pulse of it.
I'm trying. Unfortunately, I don't have the dashboard. That would be the publisher's got that. Superversive's got control of that. So I got to nag Jason and say, hey man, how many copies have we moved, and things like that. And I maybe talk to him in the future about maybe seeing if we can't change that, because I would love to have a little bit more control and say, okay, look, it's something slowing down. Let's change it up a little bit. Let's reword the keywords. Let's play with it and just have the ability to monkey with it and see if something starts working better, and just rather than waiting a week to find out that sales are down, and then doing something about it. I would like to be able to just play with it a little bit. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Did you do the 1,000-word what's it called, where you reference your book against like a whole bunch of other books that might be in the similar category?
Did. And in fact, I was watching one of your other live streams, the one you did with Jaji and John. Star Quest.
Yeah.
And that helped. I was talking to, I was asking questions during that one about how to, trying to figure out what genre it was. And so I used the advice from them to try to help figure out how to classify this book. And then I talked to Bokara, who's got a whole bunch of books coming out this year. She is just on a roll, and she's an inspiration. And she helped me out with the keywords, and so did John. I talked to John Delarose and asked him for some advice on keywords and how to do that. And then I took their advice, I ran with it, and emailed Jason pages of keywords. So,
what sort of advice did you get from them?
What you just described, using other writers' names and books as your keywords, so that kind of doing that, working that algorithm. So like if you like A, you might like B, kind of thing. So definitely tried to look up as many books as I could, that even though I haven't read most of them, I'm trusting the classification, right? Like once I figure out what I was going to call this, right? And like we talked about, there is no science fantasy. So, turns out there's a military fantasy, and there's like Glenn Cook's in there, and not the Dresden Files, but there's another series by the same author.
Monster Hunter?
No, well, Monster Hunter's one of them, but no, the same author, the exact same author.
Let me just look over here. Hard Magic?
Might be it. I don't remember.
I think Hard Magic would fit more than anything else.
Right. And people have said Sanderson. Nightland. So I tried to find books that I thought, like, okay, Chris Fox's Magitech. We got Spaceships versus Dragons. All right, what did he call it? And I was surprised to find he called it military sci-fi. I was like, really? Okay, I can see that. But I was scared that if I called my book military sci-fi and people were expecting another Ember Wars, would they be disappointed to find the entire story is planet side? We never go to outer space, so it's not space opera.
No. But no, I don't think anyone really has a problem with that.
Right. And then of course, they come across magic users. I don't call it magic in the book. It's called Shaping Strange, but it's magic. It's literally it's what it is. So I'm like, I didn't want to disappoint a reader by betraying their expectations. So I was very, very concerned about how to classify it. And the advice I got from those guys was to, find the books that you think are the most similar to yours, and use those titles and authors' names as a keyword, to help get your book in front of the right people. And that's the challenge. That's the challenge, because everyone who has read it has said they really like it. I'm pretty proud of it for a first effort. I hope I did good. But it's hard. I'm waiting to get those reviews from strangers. That's what I really want to see. Because right now, I think only one of the 9 reviews is from somebody who I don't know. The other 8 are people I know. So it's like there's always going to be that self-doubt. Are they saying nice things because they like me, because they're my friend, because it's my mom, or you know what I mean, or what does a stranger have to say? And that's what I really want to find out. And so hopefully we just keep, like everyone says, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So I haven't broken any records. The day it came out, we got into the top 100 military fantasy, but it's settled out around 150. In the Amazon ranking there. So, but I'm hoping with the sale coming up on the 15th, we can get back in the top 100 again. It was kind of cool seeing my name next to, why can't I think of the author of the Dresden Files? No, I'm tired. What is his name?
Jim Butcher.
Butcher, yes, Jim Butcher. So yeah, it was kind of cool seeing, that feeling of pure joy when you see the little picture of your book, and it's got Glenn Cook on one side at 84 and Jim Butcher over here on the other side at 86, and you're sitting at 85, and you're like, yes, victory. But it was fleeting. It was fleeting. But yeah, I'd like to get back in there. I work in the oil field, so in this game, I guess you got time or you got money. If you have time, then you use it. You do your own editing. You learn how to do graphic art so you can design your own cover. You can, there's a lot of things you can do if you have the time and the energy and the will to learn it. But I don't have time. I work 100 hours a week on average, and I have barely enough time to write. And so the flip side of that is I take those big paychecks and I'll pay somebody else to do it for me. So it's definitely a group effort, and I've got like 8 promo sites stacked up. We're all hired or paid into these different book deals, like Book Rebel, OTOH, Just Kindle deals. I can't remember them all, but there's like 8 of them that I've signed up for, and I'm stacking them all on the 15th. So when it drops, it's kind of like this Kindle countdown thing. So when it goes to 99 cents, all 8 of these different websites are going to start putting it in their newsletters. They're going to start putting it on their websites and sending it in their newsletters to their newsletter subscribers, because my newsletter is pretty anemic right now. I've only got like 130 subscribers and a 20% open rate. So hopefully these stacked promos will get it out in front of more people who might like it, and we'll just start the long haul work of organically building a fan base. And that's what it's all about to me, is I'm not looking to get rich. I seriously doubt, unless stranger things have happened, right? There's people out there making, you've seen the same people I see in like 20 books, 50K. There are some people out there outstanding work, right? Financially, successfully. But I think a lot of that is, they have they're deep series. They've got their whale readers hooked. they're in a good genre like military sci-fi or romance and paranormal romance, and they're pumping out series, books once a month, and great. That would be awesome. I would love to do that someday. But in the meantime, I really don't think I'm going to make more selling books than I do in the oil field. So I can't see myself making that kind of that transition to writing full time for quite a while. So any money that we make off of this is going to just go to future books. It's going to pay my editors, and it's going to pay my graphic artists and things like that. So where was I going with this? I'm not going to get rich. Oh yeah. So knowing that I'm not getting rich on it is my big thing is I just want people to enjoy it. I want to share this cool story that I shared with my son with more people. And that's one of those thoughts that I had. I was talking to Richard this morning. I'll tell you the same story. I've always been a role-playing game kind of guy, and 99.9% of the time, I'm the dungeon master. That's just how I roll. I always have this story I want to share with somebody, and I have a hard time being a player. I want to be the storyteller. And I thought, well, this is a lot of fun, and there's something good about it too, because you're doing it with friends, and you're here in the moment. It's not something that you can put in a bottle. So there's that element of being in the present and being mindful, and that's good. Those are all good practices. So there's not to take away from the experience of role playing, but I thought, if I spend the same amount of time writing a story in a book format as I spend coming up with NPCs and tiling out the dungeon crawl, if I spent that same time writing a book, I could share my story with more than just my 6 friends. I could share it with as many people as possible. And to me, that's what it's all about, is telling somebody an entertaining story. I told Richard this morning that I probably should have waited to write this book. This should have been the book that I wrote after I had a fan base, because it's so hard to classify, because it's so cross genre. I could have probably had an easier time getting away with it if I had done something first, written a good series to market and acquired a fan base. But at the same time, this was the book I had to write. It was just, this is what made me want to be a writer. And it's been a fun journey ever since, but I'm looking forward to finishing the series. It's been on my mind, and I've been working on it for years, with no exaggeration, for years. I started it years ago, many years ago, like 2013, I think is when I first started tinkering with the idea. And like I said, in 2016, I had, 250,000 words of a rough draft that I threw away, and it turned into what is now, was a trilogy, and is now going to be a quadrilogy. So anyone who already bought a copy of the book in paperback, it'll say the Goddess Gambit, the No Gods, book 1 of the No Gods, No Masters trilogy. That is now, if you buy it now, the cover's been changed, so it'll say series or saga. So anyone who has one of the trilogy books might have a collector's item someday, because there's definitely going to be 4 books now. Book 3 turned into a beast, and I had to call Jason and go, look, are you okay with the 4th book? And he said, you're not going to pull a George R.R. Martin on me, are you? I said, no, sir, I'm not. I said, I'm fine with that. So book 3, basically book 2 got turned into book 2 and 3. And what would have been 3 is now going to be 4. So we're definitely looking at a quadrilogy. Otherwise, the size of the sequels would have been they would have been too expensive for us to print. Because I don't have people aren't buying it by the pound. I'm not Stephen King yet.
But that's considering what he puts out these days. It's not something to envy.
True.
I haven't spoken for like 30 minutes. It's like, oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to throw shade on Stephen King. But, so a lot of people have been going through to put out their stories into adding an extra book. I know Brian Niemeyer has done that with his Combat Frame Exceed. Now you're doing it. I have for the book Cyber Gothic. I realize I'm going to hit like 60K words before I finish the first half. And if it wasn't for the job search and general weirdness that always hits me around New Year's, probably would have finished that part by now. And then I'm going to do it in like 2 books, part 1, and then part 2. Yeah,
Cool.
I know.
Very cool. I'm looking forward to Cyber Gothic, and I'm
Right?
looking forward to the Sheik of Mars. I got to get on Jason, man.
Yeah, it's out there, man.
No, it was I'm supposed to get a signed copy. He's supposed to get you a copy and make you sign it, and then there's a part of the Get Superversive to Dragon Con perk. Yep. So I gotta kick him in the butt.
Well, I did get his address, and I actually happen to have a spare copy, so I will probably arrange something with you later.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. No, I haven't yet. Yep. No, that was a pretty good promotion. We're doing Dragon Con again this year, and I think he's looking into getting us a table, though I don't know how far that's gone or not.
Right, and I think I'm going to be working with you on that. Because I'm definitely going, and he told me, of course, that you're going to be the table guy for the most part, and I thought, well, I'd be happy to sit there and take turns with you, so you can catch some panels, and I can catch some panels, and we can hopefully both sell some books together.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to that and meeting you guys in the flesh.
And herding on show up so that they'll sign books, because people don't want to buy books from booths unless they have the author there to sign them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Last year I bought Monster Hunter Nemesis, the 5th in the series, and had it signed by Larry Correa. And now I've shown up at a book signing that he did nearby and got 2 of his The House of Assassins and Son of the Black Sword signed,
awesome.
It was a great time. He's a great, funny guy.
Yeah, I really admire him, and I want to get into that series. I've been binging on Richard Fox lately, and it's so bad that that when I read my own book, my characters sound like Luke Daniels. So I told him, I said, you need to slow down so I can give some love to these other writers that I want to read. And he goes, not going to happen. I was like, well, there's other books I want to read, but man, I just love that stuff. I love it.
Richard Fox is pretty great.
Yeah.
Like, one of those things where there's something, like, for authors, like something I'm pulling from his book is I don't like how he handled the alien diplomacy. Just because it's like, wait, we're the guys who destroyed the Zeros and all this other stuff, and you're treating us like we're some sort of, species of janitors. Give up your secret tech and all that jazz. And it's
yeah. They've been doing that from the beginning, though. I mean, before the Zaros were destroyed, they're just, yeah. I'm actually at the part right now in book 8, The Crucible, when they just betrayed humanity, took over Bastion and arrested Stacy and all that. And I enjoy the series so much. I started that fan page last week because I want to, it's like, I know there's a fandom out there. I know there, otherwise he couldn't be, moving units like he is. So I know there are readers out there. I need to know who these people are and start a club, because I got nobody I can talk to about it. I'm like, man, you guys need to read this. And they're like, who, what? I don't work with a lot of heavy reader people, so I need to find the Richard Fox fans and get them to hang out on the last stand on Takini fan page that I made, so we can all share our favorite scenes and talk crap about Standish and all sorts of fun stuff. So hopefully that'll grow into something fun.
Admittedly, I like Aaron Armor Corps series of his best.
Yeah,
that stuff's just right.
See, I stopped on the True Measure. I've only read the first 3, and I know. But that's when I decided I needed to stop and go back and read the actual first series.
Right. I need to finish Sheriff Corday.
And I've only got one more to go, Zaros Reckoning, and then I can go back and then I'm going to stagger read Terran Armor with Strike Marines and I got to give Hayes some love too. I got to get on the Terra Nova series. So
it's okay. I think Armor Core is just the best he's done, and I do need to pick up Strike Marines as well.
Yeah.
Ben, I'm going to leave this in your hands for like 5 minutes. I will be right back. Sorry about this.
Is there anybody in the? Is there a way I can see the chat?
Yeah, I sent you the YouTube link, I think. So just click on it, and it should pop up the chat. We have a few comments. Swall's loving it. Irk is making a reference I don't understand, and then the Scribe's Journey says something about marketing. I'm sorry. I'll be right back with you.
Okay, yeah. Let me try to find that link because I would like to answer these people's questions. So YouTube, there it is. So I'm sorry I've disappeared for a minute.
Be right back.
Take your time. All right. Okay. All right. So here we go. Take off the hat, Kyle. All right. Yeah. That's a reference to a role-playing game that I played with my friends. We played the Call of Cthulhu, and oh, I got you. There's a little bit of a lag here. Sorry about that. Yeah. So there's a lag here, and I'm hearing myself on the video after I'm talking. So anyway, to finish that story, there was a character, an NPC that the characters encountered, and what they had to do is confront this guy. He looked like a human, but they started to suspect that he wasn't human and was wearing this hat. And, take off the hat, Kyle. No, I don't want to take off the hat. Take off the hat, Kyle. He pulled a gun on him and shot him. You know how murder hobos can be. But I have the best players that any Dungeon Master's ever had. So today's author must spend 95% of his or time marketing and 5% actually writing. That is so sad. That's true. It's sad. But and Scribe Journey, he knows, Richard knows that how much free time you have in Oilfield. There's very little. So I'll take that Oilfield money and I'll pay somebody to do the marketing for me, and hopefully they're better at it than I am. But I do need to learn. I am learning, and but I'm very grateful. I have Jason and the Superversive team. I'm happy to be part of that team. They're all great people, and so it's definitely that. What else we got? Swall, 60 pages into the book and loving it. Excited to see where it goes. I'm loving the vivid description. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Awesome. All right. Let me. All right. So, does anybody else have a question or a comment? Let me see here. All right. Well, maybe I should read something from it. We could do that. What do you guys think?
Sorry about that. Have you seen the question from Irk Black Flame? How'd you decide to go with military fantasy?
No, I didn't see that.
Versus sci fantasy? And no, Aaron, sorry about that. I had to go take care of something. I'm back now, though, until we're done. So, yeah. So, like, we talked about this earlier. So, genre, you went with military sci fi, is that right? Post apocalyptic?
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Because of that lag time, I had the YouTube playing like 10 seconds after we were talking, so everything was crazy in stereo. Could you repeat the question?
Sure. So Irk Blackflame asks, how did you decide to go with military fantasy versus science fantasy?
Because Amazon does not have a science fantasy category.
So it's entirely practical reasons.
Yep. I would have loved to call it science fantasy because that's what it is, but apparently that genre doesn't exist. It should. It should, because, like we talked earlier, it's not really space opera. There's no outer space. And people will say, okay, Star Wars is fantasy. It's not sci-fi, right? You've
Right.
all heard that, right? Okay, because of the Force and because, it doesn't have any basis in like physics and in real. So it's not hard sci-fi. We all know that, and everybody says it's fantasy in space opera. They can get away with space opera, just like the Star Quest stuff, the pirates in space and laser swords and all sorts of good stuff. I've got all that, but it's terrestrial, so I couldn't really call it a space opera. And man, it was a real. It has been and it still is a pain in the butt because it's the hardest part is getting your book as a new writer is getting your book in front of people who might enjoy it. And I feel like my hands are tied by Amazon. So, because like every category that the book has an element of is not going, it can't stand on its own. So if I call it a urban fantasy because it has a city and there's a magic in it, and the goddess, there's a goddess and there's magical monsters and stuff, and it takes place in a city, this future city called the Ziggurat. But if I call it urban fantasy, and you're a fan of Monster Hunter or the Dresden Files, and you pick this up, you're like, what? Giant robots? What? So this is an urban fantasy. You know what I mean? So it's been a challenge, and that's why I probably should have waited to write this book. But it's like um, there's I want to write to market. I want to do that. I feel like Bokura explained it perfectly what writing to market is. It's she said it's customer service, right? It's not You're not shoehorning yourself, into a corner where you can't be creative. You find something you enjoy, and you find something that readers want, and you give them a good product, and you can have all the freedom and creativity in that within that parameter, but that's customer service. And then there's the writer, just like, I'm going to write the next American novel, and then just do whatever they feel like it, and it's more for the writer, right? Not so much for the reader. And then they're surprised, well, how come I'm not super famous and rich? Well, because you didn't write something that people wanted to read. You wrote something you wanted to write, and neither one is wrong or right. Okay, in my opinion, I think there's value to both. But you have to have those expectations. If you're not writing specifically to market, if you're writing for yourself, or in this case, like I wrote this book for my son, and I had to get it out. Now when it's done, I can move on. I can write something to market if I want. But I don't know if I'll ever. I'd like to say that the way I picture myself in 5 years is I'll be doing a little bit of both. I'll write the stuff that I have to write, that I want to write, and then all at the same time, write something that there's a market for and it's easier to classify. I'm not disappointed in the sales. I'm actually happy. I think I did really well for a first-time writer, and it's just going to get better. And the cool thing about it, yes, it's hard to classify. Yes, it's hard to market, but it is. There's nothing else quite like it, and that makes me proud. To say, hey, look, when people say that it's refreshing, they've never read anything like it, they love it. It should be a Netflix movie. That's the stuff I just, I love to hear that. So that's what it's all about.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things like when I'm done with Cyber Gothic, so I've got two series ideas that I have to work on. One's Jasper Silver, which is like why a kid has weird things happen to him, and now he has to go on adventures forever. Or as many sequels as I can string together until I decide to kill off the final boss.
Is it going to be lit RPG?
No, it's science fiction.
Okay.
But it's the science fiction that makes like people who actually know science like get a headache. They're not sure why, but something is wrong, and I did something wrong. And if I can get that sort of complaints going and get famous off of that, it's fun. I actually got disappointed. There's a lot of controversies roaming around, these authors taking down their books for the stupidest reasons from an author objective standpoint.
Right.
So someone took their book down because the villain is a Muslim. And I'm sitting there looking at Sheikah Mars, where all the villains are Muslim or Muslim aligned. And it's like,
those people.
Right. It's like they have this prime juicy target right here. And it's like, okay, you know what? That's fine. I'm gonna let this go. Just move on to the next one.
Well, you know what? They tend to eat their own.
Yeah.
And you don't move in the SJW circles. It's usually the people who would get attacked are members of the same group, their own kind. Yeah, they eat their own, and they turn on each other, and it's never enough. My wife, her expression is, "You never give a mouse a cookie. Never give a moose a muffin." Right? It comes from a children's book. Once you cave, and once you give them an inch, they will take. They'll take everything. They'll keep coming for more.
So what I'm hearing, I need to sucker them in first, and then.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of online groups where you can go and apologize to everyone for being a white male, and that'll get you a good start.
Oh, absolutely. And the second one, which is going to be very fun, but kind of like sort of in the same vein as crowd pleasing vein as Monster Hunter, is about this guy who's basically appointed by the Archangel Michael to kill werewolves and vampires and stuff like that, and I'll have all kinds of jokes and stuff like that.
That's awesome. Do you have an easy time writing humor?
No, but people sometimes come back to me and say I wrote something very funny, and I just agree with them.
Really?
And I just sort of let it go. Like the humor will be like, it'll be one of those things. I try not to explicitly write humor,
right?
Because I'm not. The humor I'm best at is the one that's like kind of on the sly, and like worked into the narrative itself. But I'm not like uproarious or anything. I don't know. It's hard for me to describe it because like my humor books are like joke books, and only joke books. And then like I have one or two comedy things. One of my favorite bits in a novel is from a novel called Arcadia Snips that you'll never read. It's a steampunk book that was like sort of came and went with a whimper, but I found it somehow and bought it. And like there's these two villains. One of them is completely incomprehensible because he has no lower jaw and his face is a wolf's face, and then his partner understands him completely. And so they'll be talking about something that's deep, like about the monarchy or economics or something like that. And like all you're hearing is, "Oh, you're absolutely right, Mr. Mitz." And then it goes on there, which is like laughs and laughs and laughs and laughs. But then it bites them when like one of them disagrees with women getting suffrage, except there's a suffragette right next to him who happens to be like the muscle. And it just ends poorly. So we've got a question from Swall. You mentioned that you scrapped an earlier version of the book and restarted, keeping about 15 to 20% of the original, without giving away too much of Goddess Gambit. What did you cut out?
Okay. There was a I actually added a lot, but there were some entire chapters that were cut. Okay, the first thing that comes to mind was the prologue. I took the old prologue and turned that into a standalone short story that I gave away to anyone who's subscribed to my newsletter. And you can still do that. Anyone who wants can go to my website, bmichaelstevens.com, and they'll see a pop-up asking if they want to join the newsletter. And if you join the newsletter, you get a free short story. It's called The Glass Forest. And it kind of takes place days before the events of the Goddess Gambit. It's not a necessary read. You don't have to read the prequel short story to understand the Goddess Gambit. It's just kind of fun. You know, there's some characters that in that short story that are also in the novel. But so that prologue turned into a standalone short story. That was one change. Another one's without giving anything away. Okay, there's the Goddess Gambit, right? The where the title comes from is the plan that this goddess has to snare John, right? And so she gets herself arrested, okay? And that's it's not really a big spoiler. I mean, that's what happens, all right? She gets herself arrested on purpose, and
right.
because she wants John to rescue her, and well, that's why, you know, well, because there's another prisoner that she has to get close to, and that's why she gets herself arrested. So it's like a twofold mission, this risk that she's taking. She gets herself arrested so she can be close to this other prisoner, because this other prisoner is the key. All right, it's like the key to the whole thing, and so she can get to that girl, and then she can also get John to rescue her, and then they can join forces. All right.
Mm-hmm.
That was going to be it. You know, the jailbreak, and then poof, off on their quest. And when I went to this conference in 2016, I learned a lot. So I think that I think when you're a beginner, that's when you get the most value out of cons, as far as learning, right? There's a point where you can get kind of hooked on the rush of being in a con, but then you have to really be careful, because a lot of critique groups and advice can actually be really bad advice. So you have to be careful with that. But in the beginning, I learned a lot, and I needed to learn that. And they told me, it's actually kind of funny, because now, like, that I've befriended so many indie authors, successful indie authors, I've learned the opposite of what I was told then. But what I was told then is that you can't sell a series. As a first-time writer, you'll never get an agent with a series. You have to have a standalone book. And I was like, well, I'm never going to have a standalone book with this. But what I can do is the next best thing. I can make the book stand on its own, in the sense that it has a climax and an end. And then, you know, just leaving it at a jailbreak seems kind of anticlimactic. So I took elements of the story that I had, you know, the game that I played with my son, that didn't happen until the end, which shouldn't have happened until the fourth book, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I took an element from that ending and put it right after the jailbreak. And so I just changed the whole way the book ended, right? Instead of just rescuing the goddess and then beating feet out of town to go find the anvil, there's this whole surprise, you know, kind of thing going on at home that no one knew about, but she finds out, the goddess finds out while she's a prisoner. And so even she didn't know it, but she learns it while she's a prisoner, and they have to deal with it. I mean, or else all is lost, right? Kind of. So yeah. And so, like, the last 33% of the book is just this massive action sequence. You know, we're trying, and it's kind of cool. I didn't even realize I did it, but all the main characters, they kind of split up. There's a party of 5. Okay, readers will come to know John, Carbine, Maya, Lucy, and Rat. There's five good guys, if you will. There's some other ones too, some minor ones, Miller. And they all kind of split up, and so there's this multifaceted thing going on towards the end. It's a lot of the way, you know, we were just talking about Richard Fox, and the way that when you're reading the Ember Wars, you'll cut from what's going on with Hale and the Marines to what's going on with Gull and the Wu sisters up in their, you know, fighter jets, and what's going on with on the bridge of the starship, and what's going on with the armor guys, Elias and stuff. So you got all these different places you can jump to, and to just keep the action going without it being one long drawn out scene. And so the characters get split up, and they're dealing with all this stuff. And I guess the editor, he said, I didn't even realize I did it. It was an accident. He said he really enjoyed the way how each character gets to deal with their own bad guy. So, and they were almost paired up perfectly, and it was just random. I was like, wow, I'll take the compliment, but no one tell this guy I had no idea what I was doing. But gets to deal with their own villain by themselves, and it just comes out like poetic justice. So it was good. So the ending was totally different. And to further answer this person's question, I cut a bunch of. There was a whole sequence where after the jailbreak, they were going to go to this cavern in Sonora, Texas, and there's like a huge refuge for people in the rebellion, people in the underground who are all living in these caves, and city in these caves, and they go in there, and they that all got cut, and they were supposed to learn the whereabouts of the anvil. There's this little girl from the prologue. You've read the prologue as much. The little girl Winter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anvil is. She knows where the morning star is, and that's what the goddess needs to find to save the world. And one of the changes I made, you can see in the prologue, when she touches the guy's forehead, and he has a vision, and he can see what she sees, and then ever since then he can look, and all he has to do is recall that vision in his mind's eye, and he'll see a pillar of light on the horizon, and that X marks the spot. It's like a little, okay, just walk towards the light. That's all new from the change. What happened in the old draft is when they get to this desert cave city, they find this alien called Them, and they were like living crystals, right? Like quartz crystals, and it was all inspired because I went cave spelunking in Sonora, Texas, and there are these massive crystal formations, unique to all caves. Really, it's a unique formation. They call it the butterfly, and so you got stalactites and stalagmites and all that, but then they have these really impressive calcite formations. One looks like a butterfly. It's calcite, just like everything else, but so I thought, okay, they have these living crystals, and it's going to have to mediate and like join the minds of the child and John, so that he can, it was just really convoluted, and like basically it was like a psychedelic scene, like a mushroom trip kind of thing.
Those are,
and
that's probably not the worst thing. Those type of scenes can go badly, very poorly.
And then, of course, just here recently, I was finishing up the sequel, and I'm sure you remember, but I was advised by my editor to cut a scene where the gore went into distasteful territory.
Yes, I remember that.
Man, I did not want to cut that scene, and but I did. I asked the advice of my peers at Superversive, and they all but one, I think, except for I think Ken, the voice actor.
Yeah.
He was the only one who was like, "No, I like it. It's great." Everybody else was like, "Down." I would be disgusted. And I was like, "All right, I got to cut it," and so I did. And that's one of the fun things about this. And I was really actually surprised and happy that Jason decided to publish me in the first place, is because it is a superversive story. It is a good conquering evil. Guy gets the girl, right versus wrong. All of that, I truly believe in all that. And but it is not afraid to go to dark and gritty places to get there, because that's the world we live in. I think I didn't want to candy coat anything. As a Christian, and this is not Christian fiction, okay? But as a Christian, I do believe that good will ultimately triumph over evil, and I enjoy writing that kind of stuff. I didn't want to produce some sort of grimdark, edgy, you know, flop. I wanted the story that you want. You know, the good guy wins, good triumphs over evil, and all that. But in order to triumph over evil, evil has to be evil, and so there is some gruesome gore. There's some pretty wicked bad guys. There's some dark things happen, but that's what makes you rally. That's what makes you rise up against and overcome. You know, if it was just like, you know, my bad guys are bad guys is what I'm saying. And,
Yes.
You know, we don't mince words and stuff, and
Yeah.
so I was actually shocked because I was like, gosh, I hope, you know, this isn't. And I told Jason, you know, the sequel to Rule in Hell, it's definitely it's our Empire Strikes Back, right? The good guys don't win in the sequel, right? But that's part of their journey, and
Yeah.
eventually, yeah, I warned Jason. I said, you know, I think it's gonna. I said the sequel's pretty dark, you know. And he's cool with it. And I'm like, oh, thank God, you know, this is awesome. It's been an awesome experience.
As long as there's no Ewoks.
Yeah.
Well, so that answers Aaron VT's question. And it's always good to have that perspective. Avoid the pitfalls of modern literature and actually, you know, do that little thing we call standing for something. Not losing hope, fighting on, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So when do you expect the sequel to be out?
I think we need that in this world now more than ever.
Absolutely. Get on the Yang Gang. I hear that's the latest meme train that John De La Rosa is promoting.
Yeah.
Yes. Even though it's absolute bonkers, but it's you know, I think it's going to be funny.
I think if you know, wherever you stand on the political spectrum, left or right, I have to say, because if you put yourself in a leftist point of view, and you see Trump the way they see him, and then if you're over here on the right and you see things like, you know, Cortez and Yang,
Mhm.
we really are turning into idiocracy.
It's beautiful. It's one of those things I don't even want to see because I'm scared I won't recognize it.
I'm just waiting for the Brondo ads. You know, it's got what plans crave. I mean, we're really it's like a circus out there. I can't even.
It's beautiful in a horrible fashion. When do you expect the sequel to be out?
Okay. Well, it's done. It has to get formatted. And I'm waiting on the cover art. And the first cover is awesome. Matt Margulis of logotexture.com is my guy. Highly recommend him to anyone who ever needs a cover. But I wanted to do something different for the sequel. I want, and I haven't actually really surprised. I haven't got any flack yet from the first cover, because I'm sure if you are into video games at all, you can pretty much tell that it's inspired by Fallout, right? The guy on the cover, John, it looks very similar to the character, some sort of armored character in this video game Fallout. I've never played the game, but it is kind of iconic, and I didn't mind the comparison because, because it's a similar setting. If you like Fallout, you'll probably like the Goddess Gambit. It's the same kind of, you know, it's a post-apocalyptic world, and there's all sorts of cool stuff in it. You know, robots and cyborgs and whatever.
Yeah.
But turns out the what's the word I'm looking for? Stock photo that we used was actually a Fallout cosplayer. And I'm like, can you do that? Can you dress up like something that you don't have the rights to and then sell the photo professionally? Right. So poor Matt, I put him through the ringer. We had to make a lot of modifications in Photoshop to make it look not, you know, so we could get away with it, basically. And so, you know, I like the end result. He has more of a Cobra Commander kind of look to him than the big Fallout guy with the tubes and stuff, but you know, a lot of it's still the same. And he shaved the chest down, and he put John's number on the chest, and we made enough changes to where we felt we could get away with it. But I'm really surprised no one's hey, that's a Fallout ripoff. But I'm not too concerned about that. I've talked to a lot of successful indie writers who are like, you know, fans want content. There's always going to be some hater out there. You know, you look at Nick Cole's stuff. The guy is phenomenal, successful. He writes great stuff, and you know, only an idiot would not enjoy the book because so and so on this has the slit like Boba Fett, or what's the new fantasy one that he's working on where the lost lands, or it's got a fantasy. What's that?
I can't
remember the title of it, but the font and the map that he's used looks, the font's identical to the font that TSR used to promote Forgotten Realms, the setting there, and it's his title is even like Lost Lands, or you know, it's very similar to Forgotten Realms, but that doesn't matter. You know, that's what fans want. That's what fans want. And you know, people, you know, I watched, was reading comments under Chris Fox's Magitech ad on Facebook, and people, oh, this is just like Rifts, or this is just like Shadowrun, and he's like, what? You know, that's what people who want a Rifts novel don't have any options but to go and find Chris Fox's Magitech or the Goddess Gambit and go, yes, this is the book I've been waiting for 20 years for. Right. So I'm not worried about that, but I did want to do something different with the sequel's cover. I wanted Lucy. Lucy is my favorite character. She's my girl, and she's kind of a unique thing, and she's so unique that I think it would be a good selling point, and I want her on a cover because it's going to grab people's attention. Lucy, if you haven't read the Goddess Gambit yet, no spoilers. Lucy is a cyborg warrior. She's a former assassin, used to work for the bad guys. Now she works for the good guys, but she still has all the skills to pay the bills, and she's this cyborg lady of death, right? Her whole body is cybernetic. Everything's mechanical except for her brain. So she's a full conversion cyborg, and she's been sculpted to look like the Santa Muerta, or one of the ladies from the Dia de los Muertos, the Days of the Dead. Right. So she's got the skeleton face and this long black hair, and she's a Mexican lady of Mexican descent. Mexico doesn't exist anymore. America doesn't exist. So she's a Latina, and she's the badass femme fatale, pardon my language, you know, but she's just a cool character. I really like her, and I think it's pretty unique that you've got this, you know, I've got a cyborg lady who looks like a Day of the Dead girl, and well, there's no stock art for that. Right. And so I got with Kirk DuPont's, and he's hiring a model, and he's gonna do some custom work for the second cover. And he's a very busy guy. He just did a poster for Kevin Sorbo's latest movie. He's done the posters for the Realm Makers convention up in your neck of the woods. And so he's a fantastic artist. And so we're going to have an actual model pose, and then he's going to take that model and put her into Photoshop and create Lucy. And I'm really excited about that. So I've told him when we want to release by, which is going to be the end of April, beginning of May. And he sounds like everything will be okay. But right. In another couple of weeks here, I'm going to nudge him again. How are things coming? You know, so I don't want to bug him too much because I don't want him to rush it and then it not be his best work. Because if you see the stuff he produces, it's phenomenal. And I just I'd rather wait to publish another month if I had to, as long as I can. If my consolation prize is this amazing cover by Kirk DuPont. So yeah, so we're looking at May, and then book 3 will be coming out in July. And unfortunately, while I'm excited that the trilogy is turned into a quadrilogy, it's going to be a while before book 4 is ready. I still have a lot of work left to do on it. I'm only halfway through book 3, and the only thing I've done on book 4 is outline. So but I do have some things that are going to come out between books 3 and 4 that will keep people happy. Kind of pulling a John De La Rose here, and squirrel, just getting sidetracked. So between books 3 and 4, I'm going to release an anthology collection of my own horror stories under a new horror imprint that Superversive is going to write or create. I'm not sure what Jason's planning on calling that yet, but he said he's going to make a horror imprint. And I guess it's going to be kind of fun for us Superversives to, play with our dark side, because there's nothing Superversive about these horror stories. There's stuff I wrote years ago, and half of them have been previously published in H.P. Lovecraft magazines, and there was an anthology by Dark Matter Press and an anthology by Hellbound Books, and they're all pretty gruesome stuff. So that'll be fun. Get that stuff out, and then I'm also going to release a novella set in the No Gods universe, set in the same universe as the Goddess Gambit, but completely side story, standalone side story about a little girl in Finland. So we get to, whereas the Goddess Gambit and sequels all take place in Colorado, Mexico, Belize, and then Tartarus, hell. But we don't really get to see what the rest of the world looks like. We just understand that it's pretty crazy out there, just
right.
Post-apocalyptic. We don't know. So I just started playing with an idea of like, well, I want to explore some of the rest of the world, that has nothing to do with John and Maya and those events. And so this novella, I'm about halfway done with it, and it's about a little girl, young, like I want to say like 10 years old, maybe 12, young child, and she has to go on this journey to a forbidden place to find something to save her dying dad, and it's kind of fun. So I created a completely different mythology in this village that she lives in. It's a small little remnant of humanity that held on after the storm, and they came to a completely different kind of civilization than Ziggurat and home and things. What they have is a very primitive existence, like a hunter-gatherer, reindeer farmer, kind of herder, I should say, reindeer herders, living like the ancient people of that region did, living like the Finns from prehistory and whatnot, the Lap people. And then it kind of got inspired by another video game, me and my video games, called Horizon Zero Dawn. Are you familiar with it?
I am.
Okay, so kind of like that, but there's no robot monsters walking around, but the idea that technology, these people have a fear of technology. They believe the storm happened because the gods were punishing men for their hubris, and so they live in the old way, and anything from the time before the storm technological is forbidden, right?
Of course.
So yeah, so but she has to go and brave this forbidden zone against the wishes of her people and against her upbringing, in order to save her dad. And it's just been kind of fun because I'm having fun with Google and using Finnish place names and Finnish boys' names and Finnish girls' names, and just really immersing myself in that, and just writing this kind of story. So that's going to come out, and the anthology is going to come out, and then hopefully that will keep everybody sated while I write the fourth and final book for No Gods, which I want to take my time with, and I want it to be as good as the Goddess is. So it's not going to be a rapid release, unfortunately. But we do get books 1, then 2, then 3, and then the novella and anthology all this year.
I like it. Well, let's see here. We've covered quite a bit. We've been on the air for 75 minutes. Do you have any final words for us, Ben?
No, I don't think so. I want to thank everybody that's been supportive, and I want to thank Superversive Press. Thank you, Ben. I'm really happy to be part of this family, and looking forward to hearing people's feedback. Love reading those reviews. So, and I want to thank everybody that's been supportive, and I hope that you guys enjoy it.
Thank you, and I certainly am enjoying what I've read so far, and a lot of other people have as well. You have a good day.